So I've wanted to make this video for 3 years, literally 15 minutes after I bought this rig, because I am not a fireman, I'm not a professional fireman. I'm going to give you fire safety tips today that we've learned over the years, but what I am a professional at is I'm a professional worrier. And since day one, there's things that I always wanted to take care of and worry about. And I'm going to tell you everything that I've learned in the last 3 years. This is a tough subject to cover because there's so many areas in so many different areas of your rig that when you're outside, I can talk about the same subjects that I will be talking about when I'm in the inside. So I just decided to just divide it between talking about the outside and the inside, and then we'll have some repetition. So for instance, let's talk about propane. Sue and I have a all-electric coach, and the beauty of that is we don't have any propane on board. But the bad thing is, I guess, unfortunately, is that the RV dealers, many of them, they don't provide me with a vented space to be able to carry propane. So for instance, if a person would look at this space and they go, oh my God, my 20-pound propane cylinder will fit in there perfect. You know, they can do that if they choose, but if you attend any RV rallies or FMCA rallies like we maintain people should do, I in fact asked that question because at that time, a few bays back, I was carrying a 20-pound propane cylinder in my non-vented bay. And not only did everybody in the crowd gasp, but the guy that was teaching the class gasped. So you might ask, why do I want to carry propane if I was so happy I didn't have a propane coach, because we have an all-electric coach and our cooking range is electric? Well, everybody knows you want to barbecue and you want to have a barbecue grill, and then we also found out, since Sue and I aren't exactly campers, I'm kind of lazy to make a fire, that I found that I really liked the fire pit, and for a while we used that. But we don't carry that now because we can't carry propane. I want to show you something. We have a tire safety video. It's episode number 99, and it talks about how we've upgraded our tires and we've made great efforts to make sure that we have very new tires on, so I don't have a blowout issue here, or at least try to limit the possibility. But what you want to worry about in tire blowouts is not only all of the radial damage that will happen. If this tire blows, that tire is a very high percentage of metal, and it just turns into like a giant wire wheel, busting everything out along here. Well, right next to here is the tube that goes into your diesel tank. So a lot of times what will happen is that tube and everything around it will also get mangled up and everything. And that's why when you have a flat tire in the front, sometimes you'll get a fire that can impact your diesel. And you certainly don't want your propane tank right here, especially if it's, you know, not vented. It all just starts to add up. As we go back here, one of the things I would like to show you is that we carry a fire extinguisher outside. Now, before I made this video today, I actually had a conversation with Corey and George. They got a Prevost. I really trust these guys. They got a lot of good tips. And I was telling them what I was going to be talking about, and they said, hey Mark, do you have a outside fire extinguisher like this on each side of your rig? And I thought I was really prepared, and I had told you before that I'm in charge of worrying about everything. I forgot to worry about that, and now I'm going to get another one of these and I'll put it on the other side, because in fact they had a tire fire in the back. Their brakes hung up, and they were lucky that they had something to put that fire out with. I would have nothing. I'd be running around the rig like this, you know. It would not be good. So what I carry out here is I carry a 10-pound fire extinguisher, and I leave it in this this paper box here, just so that it doesn't get all mangled up bouncing around here. But that brings up a point, is that this is a dry chemical kind. And for 3 years now, this thing has been driving down my rig like this. And I'm slowly packing that dry chemical down. God only knows if this thing will work. Now, it does say that it's 100% here, and I think periodically you're supposed to, you know, like move this stuff around in here so that you don't have a problem. But for 3 years, it's been bouncing around on its bottom. So you only know, God only knows how effective that's going to be. Now, if anybody is observant here, they're going, hey Mark, you just told us that you didn't carry any propane. Well, I didn't mean to lie to you. I just didn't get a chance to talk to you about it yet. So back in here we have a Weber grill. And periodically when we want to feel like campers, but mostly when we have Brian and Linda over because he needs something to cook us dinner on, we have a Weber grill back there, and we got to fire it up with propane. So I have made the decision that I would rather carry 1 or 2 1-pound cylinders and put them safely in a storage area rather than carry a 20-pound one. Sue and I bought these plastic, not plastic, these are actually brass threaded caps with a nice black seal, rubber seal in there, and you just screw it on the threads. It's got a nice positive feel to it, and it tightens against that rubber gasket. We feel a lot safer with that. So what I do, I don't normally carry that one in there. I just had it in there because it was convenient. When I carry mine, what I do is I intersperse them where my water filters are, so that as they're rattling around, they're touching cardboard and the other filters, and they're not like clinking away at the metal and doing things. That's the best I can do. Let's go back to the other compartment. I want to show you something. This is the compartment actually where when I was carrying a propane cylinder, I used to carry it. And I actually used to carry it right here. And when I went to the FMCA rally, the safety seminar, and I told them I was carrying it in here, people said, well, you do realize that directly across the rig, you can't see it here, but there's a little wall, like at the end of this case, there's a little gray felt fuzzy wall in there. And guess what's on the other side of there? Well, it's my Oasis hot water heater. This is an example of the open flame that I'm talking about on the Oasis. I probably shouldn't have said open flame. It's obviously not open. It's contained inside this nice powder coated beautiful little green box. But let's not forget what's going on inside of that green box. You look inside that port hole there, you can see that there's a storm of flames going on in there. And that's the type of thing that you have to keep in mind, that when you're carrying around a propane cylinder that's inside that bay that is actually pretty well insulated from infiltration of air. Every one of my bays has this nice rubber gasket all the way around, and for rodent intrusion, obviously they don't have open areas. So if I would have propane that would be in there when that flame is lighting and unlighting, if something wasn't happening right in there that should be happening right, I don't want to have an issue or a problem. So I'm not going to buy that thing couldn't potentially cause me a problem if something started going wrong in it. So all of a sudden, because I'm in charge of worrying, I started worrying about if I had a propane leak here and the propane would come down and I got no vented area in this whole bay and it snuck over to where my boiler was, I could have a problem. After I came to terms with that, that was it. 20-pound propane cylinder gone for me. Now, this is coincidental that a few days ago I wrote the vice president of Blue Rhino, and I was trying to get him to correspond with me to see if they're even thinking about a deposit system for the Blue Rhino cylinders. If someone like me could go to an area like we're going to be going in California for a month or 2 or 3 or whatever, and bring along my fire pit that I loved, and when I would get there, I could go to a Blue Rhino, I could get a cylinder, I could use it or even not use it, whatever. But when I'm finally ready to be done with it, if I could go back to a Blue Rhino station, turn it in and get a chip or a key or get something on a swiped credit card from Blue Rhino that would say, hey, you turned your cylinder in, we know you got a core credit, and you apparently want to travel without your cylinder, that would be awesome. So I hope someone in the Blue Rhino organization sees this video, because there are plenty of people that really, I would be willing to bet, would prefer not to be traveling with their cylinder or cylinders, but they kind of have no choice. And a lot of times we just throw up our hands when we have no choice. Let me show you the last thing that I want to talk about in here. You'll notice that I have a smoke detector in here. Now, this is not a CO detector, this is a smoke detector. But the beautiful thing about this one, and I have one diagonally in the basement as well, because I have a solar system on my rig here. So right next to the MPPT charge controller, conveniently right on the other side of the wall of the battery compartment, I have another one of these. And these two, as well as the two that are the same vintage and model of this one, they communicate all by Bluetooth. So if this one blows off because I have a fire here, or it senses a fire in the boiler, it sends the signal upstairs, and it would set them all off, and hopefully I would be able to hear it. So I'm going to talk about a different set of these I have up there as well, that are smoke detectors and CO detectors. They're a different brand, a different vintage. These are older. Those are brand new. These have dip switches in the back so that you pair them together. Really easy. Just flip them all in the same way, and so they all communicate. The one that I just bought recently that is the CO detector, they actually paired automatically, and they were awesome. I literally just took the battery tape off, and they instantly communicated with each other, and they knew where they were and who they were, and they even talked to you. If there's a fire, it says there's a fire, or if you have a CO issue, it tells you have a CO issue. This is an example of an open compartment that is vented. No bottom. Now, some vented compartments do have a bottom on it, but it's obvious that any gases would be able to go down. This might be a bad example to show, but that's kind of all I got to pick from. Since we're outside, car show. Since we're outside here, we're going to talk about two systems that I'm aware of. One is the Proteng, P-R-O-T-E-N-G. It's a system that's I've seen at many FMCA type shows and rallies, and they're predominantly sold by installers that you have to contact and tell them what rig you got and tell them what level of protection you're looking at, and they'll give you an estimate on what it could cost to protect your system. Now, I did that, and it was in the neighborhood of like $4,000 to protect the rig. These things look like if you took a hula hoop, just cut it in one area, and you unrolled it, and on one end you put a cork, and the other end you either inject this special gas in it and then put a cork on it, or put a gauge on it if you buy the deluxe version. That's what this thing looks like. And they're sized based on the cubic feet of area that you're trying to protect. So if you look at this, you would measure the cubic feet you're trying to protect, and then you would buy the appropriate length of tube, because the tube is all the same from a cross-sectional standpoint. It just gets longer and longer. So when I had it quoted, I can't remember what length tube they had here, but they would take that tube and they would just kind of attach it willy-nilly to different points here so it wouldn't get damaged, but it would just sit in there, and then if it ever got hot enough and there was flames in here and it would pierce that tube, it would melt it, then it would deluge and it would put out this fire. I would like to give credit to a channel out there, Outside Our Bubble, by David Bott. If you go to his channel and go to videos and then go to the search button on there, just type in fire, F-I-R-E. He did an excellent video where he actually put like a 20 or a 30-pound bottle, a fire suppression bottle back here, and he hard piped it to 2 brackets that he made, and these brackets would stick way in, and then they just screwed into somewhere that he could get at easy. Then he had another bracket that he made that stuck way in there, and then he screwed it onto something that was easy to get at. It's really an excellent video. I kind of stumbled on this on Amazon. It kind of surprised me that Amazon has these tubes that I was talking about that Propane has. They're 2 different companies. I'm sure they're 2 different technologies so that they don't fall over each other, you know, with legal issues. But to be able to go on Amazon and get these tubes and size them based on the volume that you're dealing with to fire to put out, and I would say that you always want to overkill way over on that. It didn't look like they had too many sizes available. They just had a 9-foot version available, and it was good for, they said, 1 cubic meter of volume. That would cover almost most of the bays that we're talking about here, you know, in a localized area. Probably wouldn't cover this. If it was me, I'd probably put 2 or 3 of them in here. But the point is that if you're handy, you could outfit your whole rig way less than the 4,000 bucks I was talking, that I was quoted. This is directly across from where I was talking at the beginning of this video. If a person wanted to protect this, they could put that BlazeCut 9-foot tube in here, you coil it up, and you just attach it with the little anchors that they have. You can just follow the profile. It's nothing fancy, it's just gotta be there, and it can't be bouncing around damaging itself. But if you would have a fire, then it would burst open and put the flames out. What I wanted to talk about in here, I just recently had this done. That silver box that's in the back there, that's a transfer switch. Now you can see that it's not overly easy to get at, so that's why I paid somebody to do it. But I paid somebody to open it up and put a torque wrench, and you have to have a small torque wrench, but to torque all the fittings to make sure that the cables or the wires from here that go into the transfer switch, and then the wires from the rig that go across the transfer switch, you want to make sure they're tight, because as they loosen up, that's when you're going to get arcing, and that's when you could get a fire. Once again, you can see if you put one of those tubes up there, or just, you know, flopped it around or stuck it in the back and fed it in there, it probably would stand up in there by itself. You'd be all set. Remembered one other thing I wanted to say about the transfer switch is the way you damage the transfer switch itself is when you go and you turn off your power or pull your cord when your air conditioners are still running. What happens is there is such a drastic arc across the contacts and everything that's happening there, is every time you do that, you're compromising your transfer switch. So just as a best practices, I would say make sure you turn off all of your high draw things and your air conditioners before you come outside and turn everything off. Give the transfer switch a break so it lasts the test of time. Here's the last 2 compartments I'll open up. This one here is where I have that diagonal smoke detector there. You'll notice it's right next to the power on-off box, and right next to it is my solar charge controller.
And Fifi.
Yep, and a Fifi. Now, if I was really smart, I wouldn't have fuel right next to it, meaning some plastic to burn and a Fifi and my sewer hoses. But you know what? You'll learn real quick when you're full-time, you only have so much room for so many things. Come on, Sue, let's go inside. So the first thing everybody has in their rig, it's kind of a law. They have a fire extinguisher right when they come in. And it's right in the corner here. Not particularly handy to get at. I can actually get at it a little bit better because I am somewhat comfortable sitting in this floorway here. But this fire extinguisher probably suffers the same fate where you're going down a road for years on end and you're just packing it down. So God only knows if periodically you should break this up. The reason I'm taking the time to show you this is there's going to be a lot of people out there when they go check their Kidde fire extinguisher, they're going to find that this top here on it is plastic. Now, I can tell you that probably 5 years ago, probably even 8 years ago, the plastic top fire extinguishers were recalled by Kidde. And in fact, one of my recall stickers on here is probably when they replaced this with a steel one. Kidde will do it for free. Now, if you have one of these plastic ones, I would suggest that you go to the Kidde site, the Kidde website, and there is a program still in place, and if it's not on the website, you give them a call. I guarantee you that from a safety standpoint, they're going to want you to have the new improved version that doesn't have this plastic head that was prone to failure for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. This smoke detector here is the same vintage that I showed you in the outside bay there. That was where my fire extinguisher was. And this one communicates via Bluetooth, and it's a dip switch style. It's a Kidde brand and very easy to install. This one here is the run-of-the-mill CO detector that came with the rig. I think I recently replaced that one day when the one that was up there died, just for the heck of it. Recently, because I'm in charge of worrying, and remember, I'm not a professional fireman, I'm telling you what I am a professional at, worrying. So I got another smoke detector here that is Bluetooth, and it's CO. Now, they put the CO ones up here because underneath the floorboards where we are right now actually is my 10,000 watt generator. And I can tell you that many times, even if my generator is not on and I'm idling with my engine back there, the floor up here must be porous enough that every once in a while these will start ticking off a little bit. I won't get an alarm, but I'll get a little beep, like, hey, I'm picking up something. And then I know that I better get on my way. And I shouldn't really be idling that much anyways because of the death issues with diesels. So let's go back a little bit further here. Oh, unbelievable. We got 2 feet in. You'll notice I have this fire extinguisher there. Now, why do I have that there? Well, I can tell you that in an emergency at night, running around the corner here and going down into that stairwell, monkeying around in that dark corner for that fire extinguisher didn't excite me. So I kind of had one of these laying around. When I was in stick and bricks, I probably had 20 of these things. And when Kidde offered the replacement, I of course got 20 brand new ones. So that's probably one of the ones I had. Let's go back this way. Can we get any amount of feet, honey, before I don't have to say anything? Oh my God, here already we have another one. Now this style here is a foam, kind of a foam gel. And these are the kind that don't damage a lot of things. So we have an all electric coach. So our range actually is an electric deal here. But if it was a flame one, a propane one, and you had a fire, you could go to town putting out this fire instantly here. I mean, this is so efficient, you might actually just choose to have a fire every day, you know, just because,
Oh my God,
you know.
please.
Well, I mean, look at how fast it is, you know. But the beauty is that you don't do any damage with the residue that's left behind. All right, so let's see. Can we go a couple more feet? Well, we went 3 feet. Oh, time to stop again. What do we got here? Another smoke detector. Now this one is the same vintage as the one that's in the corner and the one that's in the basement and the one that's in the other basement. So they all talk to each other. Why was it put there? Well, there are times when we sleep at night, depending upon the temperature of the noise or the light or the time of day, we might close this. And we would not know if there's a fire in this area unless we had a smoke detector in this area. Sue and I have a residential refrigerator, and as I had stated, we have no propane on board, so obviously this is not a propane refrigerator. But many people do, and they're really great products. Allows you to boondock and not have to plug in. This thing is an energy sow, and that's why Sue and I are basically power pedestal to power pedestal. Even though we have a solar system and good batteries, we prefer to stay plugged in. But no fire safety video would be complete without talking about refrigerator fires. Now, I don't know this for sure, but if I had a guess, and I do during this video, I'm almost thinking that the biggest fires are somewhere between refrigerators and then tire failures, and of course if you have some engine fuel problems that spray fuel on your engine, you can have a problem real quick there. What happens on the propane refrigerators is there's a process in the back that's going on that actually has an open flame, and there's like a boiler in there, and if you get boiler runaway, you can get an uncontrolled heating situation out there that the system just can't understand what it's doing, and things escalate and take off. And that's when you see the typical RV fire where the whole back of one area is just all charred out. That's where the refrigerator is. Well, if you are an advocate of going to IRV2 like I am, and some of the other RV forums there, they always end up talking about a product called Frid Defend by ARP. And they only sell two versions. They sell one version that is the control module that protects the runaway situation from happening on propane refrigerators. Then they sell the second version that is that control, as well as a computer fan that somehow works with the control and gets the air flowing a little bit better, and according to the advertisement says your refrigerator will work a little bit better. This is a de facto good product that I've been reading about for years. I certainly would have one on if I had a propane refrigerator. I've offered to buy one for my son, so if he's watching this video, just give me a call. Al, you know my number. So I did look at the video on how to install it. I think even I could do that. Typically you can get to the back of your refrigerator on an RV because it has two back panels, one on the top, one on the bottom, and that's so the airflow can happen naturally for the cooling that has to happen. It looked like you have to put this module on the back and tap into the controls. It almost looked plug and play, and then you have to take the insulation out of the stack that's expelling the heat from the heating process, and you have to stuff a thermostat in there, and then you have to stuff the insulation back in. And I think it's monitoring the temperature that when it gets to a point that is way too hot for what it should be, it ends up cutting off the system and probably sends a signal to turn off the propane valve. So anybody who's got a propane refrigerator, please check into that. The Frid Defend by ARP. All right, Sue. All right. Oh my God. I only went 2 more feet. And what do we got here? We have another fire extinguisher.
That's it?
That's it. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, we got one on this side too.
Okay, Mark
Yeah.
worries.
Yeah.
Mark worries a lot.
Oh, now look at this. It wasn't turned the right way. Okay. All right. So we got that. Actually, if I had a fire in here so I could get some new clothes, I might just shut the door for a while and let it happen. All right. So if we go this way, I went another 1.5 feet. I'll show you another improvement here. I have these lights, these LED lights. Now, if you were ever to have a fire, you could potentially have no power. And you would not be able to see what you're doing here. So if I flip these lights, I have a really brilliant, good source of lighting to be able to get out this exit. We're going to talk about this exit separately. Go a couple of more feet. I guess I felt guilty that I didn't have enough of these, so I put another one in. What the heck, you gotta have symmetry. So I've got this. Now, I've had more than one person tell me that that's a lot of fire extinguishers, but if for whatever reason you had to get out that way rather than get out this way, you could literally take this foam yourself up and have at it. And I'd feel a lot better going out covered with this stuff than just covered, with my Palm Springs shirt here. All right, so you'll notice then directly above me, CO detector and a smoke detector. This one is the same vintage as the one on the front door, so that this compartment and that compartment are talking to each other. So in the bathroom here, I also have a smoke detector. This is not a CO detector. It is just a smoke detector. And this one communicates with my other smoke detectors as well. So if it goes off, I will hear about it. Now, why is that in there? Well, if it was a CO detector, it would probably be going off all the time, because no matter how you can seal up the engine compartment, you'll notice this door that I'm standing on. If you've watched our channel for a while, you've seen this door open as they've worked on the engine. But if I ever had an engine fire, that smoke would rise up and more than likely would stay in this closet long enough for it to accumulate, and hopefully it would give us a little advanced warning. I actually would tell people that if they buy these smoke detectors that communicate with each other and are a little hesitant to put them in places like that, you can do what I did. I probably left this thing sitting in different areas of here. I did not attach it to the wall. I never had any false alarms, and when I was confident that I wasn't going to have false alarms, that's when I attached it to the wall. So when Sue and I bought our 2014 Newmar Dutstar, we both loved it from day one. The model 4369 is perfect for us, and it's obviously perfect for most people because it's the most popular Dutstar out there. But I gotta be honest with you, I almost wanted to sell it for the first year for one reason only, and that is we did not have an exit door to be able to get out in case of a fire. And remember, I worry about stuff. So on model year, I believe 2016 and above, they started to make a fire exit door that allowed you to open the back here. And in the beginning, you kind of had to step around the toilet and you could jump out. And then they got a little smarter. Then they made it so that when you open the door, there was a Velcro panel that you just pulled off, and then a ladder would kind of tumble out and you could grab on the grab bars and get out. Let's go in our bedroom here. I'm going to link down below in the description of the video. I'll link down to a video that's done by Mount Comfort RV on the 2019 Tiffin Allegro bus. They have the most fantastic system on the more affordable buses before you end up going to the ultra expensive ones. On that Allegro bus, they have panels on the back of the bed that you pull these things off, you undo these latches some way, and the whole side folds down, and these bars that or these rungs that are hanging there, when the door flops down, they turn into like steps. And I don't care what size you are, you'd be able to get through that thing because the opening has to be this big by this big to get out. It's just fantastic. So I'll put that video link down in the description. I also will try to remember to put 3 videos in the description that link to a guy called Mac the Fire Guy. Now, Mac the Fire Guy has kind of retired now, doing his RV seminars and things, but he was very plugged into, I think it was escapees. And he took the subject very serious, just like it should be done, and cautioned and tried to train people to be ready for a fire and to plan for things and to actually practice for it. I mean, he advocated that you should practice with your partner on a fire scenario, have the lights out, maybe have a blindfold on the person that's actually in the barrel, you know, doing the training, and don't kibitz, don't laugh, don't talk to this person, and have them actually practice getting out the window. Now, if you did that, and if you're my age and my size and my physical ability, you'll find out pretty quick that it's easier said than done. I agonized over how I would get out this window. And we intentionally put this here because, in all honesty to our audience, this junk, which should not be there because it's in the way of you getting out, is always there. This marital aid, this trampoline for Sue's exercising shouldn't be here. I mean, it's right on the egress doorway, but it's always there. And all of these pillows here, which God only knows why we have to have them.
They're pretty.
If you're a woman, you understand that. You know, a guy, he'd rather have a toolbox there than those pillows, okay? But those pillows normally are right here. So we just have a pile of junk in the way, which is not what I should be doing. It's not like practicing what I'm preaching, but I'm just telling you that's the way it is. Now, I just recently started looking at taking a tape measure and going, hey Mark, how big are you from here to here to get out to there? And when you go like this, and you go like this, I don't make it. I don't go through there easy. So I started to worry about it. Now, obviously, in a fire situation, this stuff here, you can just flip off here in a second, okay? But when I started to think about how would I, as the place is burning, and how would I get my legs up there without knocking my teeth out here, shimmying back to get out there? Impossible. Now, a lot of you seeing this are going to say, Mark, in a fire, I'm going to undo these latches here for the door, which, by the way, you should always check to make sure that your door does in fact open. A lot of times they get glued shut with the sun exposure, or if you're washing and waxing your rig a lot and somehow they got glued shut, or heaven forbid somebody caulked it wrong, you want to check that. But I did not think I'd be able to get out there. The average person watching this might say, hey, in a fire, I'm going to open it and I'm going head first. Well, this guy that I cautioned you to possibly look at, Mac the Fire Guy, was very, very strong when he would say, you go out that thing head first, you're going to be injured pretty bad. And when you're as old and as brittle as me, and you know, I've had some bone scan density done, I would probably end up paralyzed or very badly damaged if I went out head first. So I'm trying to think a way where I can go out this thing the right way. Now, I just recently discovered that this part here that was psychologically and physically obstructing me to the tune of 4+ inches is just Velcroed on. And that has opened it up quite a bit, realizing that some of this is a window shade here. And Sue's a great gal and told me, she said, Mark, if it's bothered you, we'll leave it off and we'll store it. So when she told me that, I was really happy, but I left it on because I wanted to make this video. And now that the video's done, you'll never see that on there again, Sue. I just thought I'd tell you. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Do the sides come out too?
the sides are bolted in, and they would come out too, but the sides don't seem to be the problem. And you'll notice they've cut this out for my belly, or for my sides. So these are love handle cutouts. Thank you, Newmar. You know, so we're all set there. So let me show you what I invented. I hope it helps some people. Some people will laugh at it. To me, it's not funny, because once I finally built this, I feel a lot better about this. Now, I'm not going to go out the door for your viewing enjoyment here, because God only knows what that'll do. But what I did was I built this board. Now, this board here is what's called LVL, a laminated veneer lumber. And you'll notice it's got a handle on the bottom of it. And you'll notice it's hidden in this gap that's here. You'll notice that it's short enough so I don't whack into the ceiling. I tried to match the stain enough so that it doesn't look too bad. And more importantly, I'm married to the right woman that lets me have this here. So this board here is on my side. I sleep on this side. It just so happens that this gap here to be able to store the board is on this side. So the plan is that I would grab this board, bring it around, plop it in here, and I'm on my way out. Now, what this provides is I went with this laminated veneered board because it's 14 inches wide. And when I put my knees together, and when I was thinking about building this, and I took a ruler out and I put it down, it was exactly 14 inches. So I didn't want to go with a standard 2x12, which, by the way, was actually more expensive than this board, because 12 inches seemed a little precarious, because when you're in the heat of the battle here and you're trying to get on something, this is 14 inches, and you can see that shoulder to shoulder, it's like perfect. Now I got to remember, obviously, to undo the window before I start on my way out. But when I finally get to the point where I'm ready to go through the window, I'll be sticking my feet through, and I'll be flattening down, and I'll be shimmying out of here, and I at least have a chance to be able to get out. I mean, you can see that I can hardly get off the board having the board. If you can imagine me trying to get through that and up onto that in a hurry, it would not happen. Now that I see I can fit through there with the junk, I probably wouldn't even worry about getting this junk out of the way here. But, you know, all hands are going to be on deck. I'll put the lights on, I'll open the window, and I'll get out of here. When one of the deals was, when I asked Sue if I could build this board, and she said, well, yeah, you can build it, she says, but since it's kind of an eyesore, I'm going to be the one that tells you where we put it. And I said, okay, fine. I'm just happy I can have it, Sue. So probably for the first couple of weeks, I know you're not going to believe this, but she actually would store this in between where we would sleep. So, yeah, so she's on this side and I'm on that side. And I'm like, Sue, this is not conducive to a happy marriage. And, you know, she's a great gal. So sooner or later, she said, you know, Mark, you're right. So now we store it here. If you want to go with the 1.5 or 1.25 inch thick 2x12, it would be substantially lighter. It would probably be almost about half as heavy. I'm not that strong. I can weigh this later for the video to see what it is. I'm betting it's about maybe 20 pounds, something like that. But so here's where we store it. Our biggest liability is going to be closing the slide and not noticing in this. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I might put a note up on the switch over there to be able to remember it. So I hope you picked up some tip here. I know it's not our usual video. This has been something that over the 3 years that we've been traveling, and certainly the 2 years since we've had our channel, I've always wanted to make this video, but I wanted to have the final piece, and the final piece for me was always this board. I can't impress upon you how I'm not joking when I was certain I would not be able to get out this in a fire. Now that I have the board, I'm certain I can get out. And now I don't feel like I have to buy a 2017 or 2016 Dutch Star just to be able to do that. I'm going to shoot higher. I'm going to go for a Prevost.
Oh, really?
No. Okay, so if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. If you like this content and you like the channel that Sue and I put our efforts in to bring you, ring the bell so you get the notifications when new stuff comes in. Any of the gadgets and smoke detectors and interconnected equipment, the fire extinguishers that we talked about in here, we'll have them in our Amazon store so you can clearly and conveniently identify what we choose to use. Remember, I'm not a fireman, I'm not a fire expert, but I'm an expert at worrying, and I got 3 years under my belt RVing. I am just trying to give you the information that I have learned in those years. Hey, we'll see you next week.
All right. Turn the air conditioning on.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Whoo, boy.
he's hot.
All right, cutter.
So now what are you doing, Mark?
Well, as you can see, I'm learning from the RVGeeks here.
Ah.
And I just remembered that I forgot one last thing to tell our viewers. Since we don't have propane on board, we do not have a propane detector. And the propane detectors are very important. They're very low mounted typically in your RV, and they have a shelf life. I don't know exactly what it is, but many times, like a smoke detector might only have a 10-year shelf life, and you kind of have to watch that and get rid of it obviously before 10 years. I wanted to bring up this website, RVGeeks. Anybody at RVs has to know about these guys. They fix and repair almost everything. They're just fantastic. And about a year ago, they did a video on installing their propane detector, and they actually did it in real time. And it was like a 10-minute job, maybe 12 minutes, and they were just masters at it. Their propane detector, and this might be on a lot of coaches, is actually down here in the corner. Now, Sue, you don't have to show anything here because there's nothing to see, but I can just tell you in back of the passenger seat down here was where theirs was. So if you don't have a propane detector in your rig, or it was removed or it's damaged, make sure you spend the $30 and get a good one and mount it low or however the instructions tell you to mount it. Also, if your rig is relatively old, it's probably a good thing to just take that thing out, yank it, and put a different one in. So, sorry I forgot about that, but we don't have propane. So, that's why we don't have a detector.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. You sure? Are you sure this time?
Yeah.
Come
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Come on.
We're done now.